Are you truly our child? My father's incredulous gaze met mine, scrutinizing my report card as it sprawled open before us. Growing up amidst a family of esteemed physicians, I had always assumed that following in their footsteps was my destined path. Thus, from childhood, I diligently applied myself to my studies, consistently ranking at the top of my class. Yet, to my father, a doctor himself, mere excellence at a local level fell short of his expectations. In his eyes, success had to transcend the national stage to hold any true merit. Repeatedly bombarded with this lofty standard, my reverence for the medical profession gradually eroded. My name is Emily, born to a lineage of doctors. Alongside my older sister Jessica, we were the progeny expected to carry forth the family legacy. Unlike me, Jessica effortlessly excelled, basking in the favoritism of our parents. Her every accomplishment was celebrated, her slightest whim indulged. I couldn't help but envy her privileged position. Constantly measured against Jessica's towering achievements, I was consistently found lacking, despite the 5-year age gap between us. My inability to mirror her successes was perceived as a personal deficiency. Over time, my parents' attention waned, diverted entirely towards Jessica's pursuits. Even in moments of stress, Jessica's verbal assaults and occasional physical outbursts went unreported, for fear of disbelief. Enrolled in a prestigious college preparatory school, I harbored no aspirations of pursuing higher education. Enduring relentless verbal abuse, I made the decision to leave home, securing a part-time job to sustain myself. Graduating from high school, I found solace in employment at a tourist hotel, free from the toxic environment I once called home. 6 months passed without contact, until an unexpected call shattered my solitude. "Come home for the New Year celebration," my father's voice commanded, leaving no room for negotiation. Tradition dictated the reunion of our doctor-dominated relatives, a daunting prospect for me. With the weight of familial obligation bearing down on me, I acquiesced. Returning for a single day, I juggled my obligations at the hotel amidst the bustling season. At home, I was thrust into the role of the dutiful host, overseeing preparations for the annual gathering. Amidst the chaos, I questioned why this burden consistently fell upon me. Yet, guilt over my divergence from the family profession kept me tethered to their expectations. Though I had hoped my departure would sever ties, my father's summons proved otherwise. For now, I would honor the familial tradition, even if it meant enduring one more painful reunion. I had meticulously planned my homecoming to be swift, using my job as a convenient excuse. However, upon arrival, my father's booming voice shattered my resolve. "You're late. Everyone's arriving soon. Why didn't you come back yesterday?" he scolded, dismissing my work obligations as mere excuses. Rushing past his reprimand, I entered a house devoid of any semblance of comfort. I dutifully carried out my assigned tasks under my mother's watchful eye, devoid of any sense of relief in returning home. As relatives gathered and festivities commenced, I remained on the periphery, a familiar outsider to familial banter. Amidst the chatter filled with hospital grievances and patient gossip, I couldn't shake the feeling that the medical profession bred nothing but contempt for others. Jessica, reveling in her superiority, mocked both colleagues and patients alike. When confronted by Christopher's taunt about my apparent failure to become a doctor, I bit back the retort bubbling within me, unwilling to engage in such draining exchanges. Under the veil of night, I made my escape from the suffocating confines of my family home. Their complaints about future chores and obligations fell upon deaf ears as I prioritized my return to work. Boarding the bus with no change of clothes, I left behind the annual charade, content to maintain the fleeting connection with my family. For 7 years, this ritual persisted unchanged, a single day of obligatory reunion. Despite my divergence from the expected path, my parents had supported me through schooling, albeit without a college degree. With each passing year, my annual visit remained a mere formality, a brief interlude in my otherwise independent life. As the familiar time of year approached once more, I braced myself for the inevitable call from my father. Yet when the phone finally rang, it wasn't his name that flashed across the screen. but an unexpected caller, heralding an unforeseen twist in our annual tradition. I hesitantly pressed the call button, surprised by the rare occurrence of a call from Jessica. Anxious thoughts raced through my mind as I answered, fearing the worst about our parents. However, contrary to my apprehensions, Jessica's voice came through the line with an unexpected buoyancy. "Hey, you know that young CEO from your workplace? He's been all over TV lately. Haven't you noticed?" Her excitement was palpable, a stark departure from her usual demeanor. I struggled to comprehend her sudden change in attitude, unsure of where this conversation was headed. I tentatively responded, acknowledging the CEO's recent media presence due to the opening of new hotels. But before I could fully grasp the situation, Jessica eagerly interjected, expressing her interest in meeting him. "Introduce me to him. I've fallen head over heels for him ever since I saw him on TV. Plus, he's a young master, isn't he? He'd be perfect for me." Stunned into silence, I struggled to find the right words. Jessica's audacious request caught me off guard, her aspirations seemingly incongruent with reality. How could someone as arrogant as Jessica believe she could captivate the attention of someone like him? Before I could formulate a response, Jessica continued, steamrolling over any objections I might have. "You, a mere worker, probably haven't even met him. And even if you have, a plain woman like you wouldn't stand out to him." Her words cut deep, but I remained silent, unable to interject amidst her relentless monologue. As she rambled on, I attempted to interject, but Jessica's momentum was unstoppable. Her presumptuousness knew no bounds as she casually informed me of her plans to stay over when the CEO visited, confident in her ability to win him over with her beauty. I struggled to find my voice, bewildered by Jessica's audacity. "But Jessica, aren't you supposed to be considering arranged meetings for marriage? It's our family tradition to marry by 30. My feeble attempt to reason with her was met with dismissive laughter. "Traditional arrangements are so outdated, don't you think? Besides, why settle for anything less when I can aim for the top?" Her words hung in the air, leaving me speechless. As she nonchalantly requested that I cover her lodging expenses, I realized the futility of trying to reason with her. With a heavy heart, I resigned myself to the absurdity of the situation, dreading the inevitable clash between Jessica's fantasies and reality. I was taken aback by the mention of arranged meetings. Hadn't Jessica already undergone that process? The thought of it left me disheartened, knowing the limited pool of suitable candidates. Just the other day, I was introduced to a 35-year-old man as a potential match. His suitability left much to be desired, leaving me with a sinking feeling. Observing Jessica's disdain for her arranged meeting partners only added to my disappointment. But her contempt for tradition didn't mean I was obligated to introduce her to Alexander. I firmly informed her it wasn't feasible and ended the call. A month later, I begrudgingly returned home for New Year's Day, intending to fulfill my familial duties before making a swift exit. However, this year my relatives seemed unusually fixated on my employment at a hotel. "Working at a hotel, Emily? I'm surprised you can handle such a menial job," Christopher remarked, echoed by Mom's impressed tone about my ability to manage a job deemed less essential than theirs. Even Dad chimed in, expressing relief that my absence spared him from neighborhood gossip. The weight of their collective disappointment washed over me, confirming what I already knew. I was considered an embarrassment. Jessica's laughter only added insult to injury, her mockery cutting deep. But her words ignited a fire within me. In that moment, I shed the facade of compliance and unleashed pent-up emotions. "Jessica, you're 30 years old, 5 years my senior. What's your plan with such lofty expectations? You'll find yourself left behind," I retorted, fueled by frustration. My outburst incited fury from Dad, demanding an apology. Yet their unwavering support for Jessica remained unchanged. She was their golden child, and I merely an afterthought. If that was to be my reality, then so be it. I longed for our family of 3 to remain together forever, but the reality was far from my wishful thinking. Despite Daddy's escalating rage, I sighed inwardly, knowing my sentiments would only stoke his anger further. "What's with that attitude? Who do you think raised you this far? Daddy's voice boomed, punctuated by Mom's solemn nodding. The echoes of their disapproval were mirrored by the relatives, their collective consensus a suffocating weight upon me. Fed up with the suffocating atmosphere, I braced myself to speak, only to be met with Daddy's cutting remark, branding me a failure who brought shame upon our family. His mocking expression fueled my resolve as I gathered my belongings, ready to depart. I will be returning after this year, I declared firmly, my words hanging in the air as I made my way to the exit. Expressing gratitude for everything up until now, I stepped outside, the weight of my decision settling upon me. As I reached the door, the sound of a car pulling up outside caught my attention. Peering out, I spotted a luxury car parked nearby. My parents and Jessica emerged, their curiosity piqued by the arrival. To my surprise, the driver was none other than Alexander, the president of my company, the very person Jessica had urged me to introduce. With a smile, I apologized for the delay, explaining that I was just leaving. "It's about time," Alexander replied, his smile hinting at an understanding that transcended words. With a casual farewell, I left my stunned family behind, their shock palpable as Alexander approached Daddy, leaving me to wonder about the unforeseen turn of events. "I apologize for the delayed greeting," I began before leaning in close to Alexander. "He's my fiancé. We're getting married next month." The announcement hung in the air, met with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. Was that Jessica's voice, my parents, or both? I chuckled, though my intention to invite them to the wedding was non-existent. With no lingering attachment to this house, I doubted I'd ever return. It became evident that this wasn't the place for me after all. After Alexander's proposal, I felt compelled to explain my situation to him, shedding light on the strained dynamic within my family. Their understanding was immediate, especially after hearing about the hospital's tarnished reputation, a subject Jessica had also broached. Ignoring my family's stunned reactions, I continued, divulging my involvement in a new hotel project near Daddy's hospital. During local research, unsettling truths about Daddy's place surfaced, multiple medical malpractices and scandals. Daddy's face paled at the revelation, and I couldn't help but question his involvement. "Are you sure it's okay?" I pressed, referencing Jessica's association with the hospital as well. According to locals, their reputations were the worst, a damning reflection on our family. The weight of the situation settled heavily upon us. It was like father, like daughter, as the phrase referring to Daddy and Jessica hung in the air, casting a shadow over our family's integrity. Feeling somewhat responsible, I expressed my determination to succeed in the hotel business and restore faith within the community. In stark contrast, Daddy and Jessica appeared visibly shaken, their once assured facades crumbling under the weight of scrutiny and realization. I confided everything in my fiancé, Alexander, who, without unnecessary interruption, simply opened the passenger door. Our paths crossed right after I left home, under the previous president's administration. Alexander, the future president, worked alongside me in the field, and our camaraderie blossomed into a close friendship. It was later revealed that he fell in love with me at first sight. In stark contrast to past experiences of being overlooked, my hard work was finally recognized and appreciated. I took pleasure in my efforts, and Alexander seemed to admire that quality. When the opportunity arose, he stepped up as president after the previous one fell ill and proposed to me 6 months ago. His request for my support resonated deeply with me. Since accepting his proposal, I've delved into various areas of study, particularly focusing on business. I discovered a newfound enjoyment in learning, realizing that my aversion wasn't to studying itself, but rather to the narrow path I felt pressured to follow in becoming a doctor. Each new subject I explored only fueled my curiosity further. As I prepared to step into the car, Daddy's voice pierced the air with a familiar question. But with a smile, I calmly declared, "I'm no longer a daughter of this house. Goodbye." With that, I left my bewildered family behind, the car silently whisking me away. In the wake of the successful opening of the new hotel, I found myself engrossed in on-site management from day one. When the establishment reached full occupancy, my parents and Jessica made an unexpected appearance. Daddy, spotting me amidst the bustle, called out, signaling their intention to stay. Despite my busy schedule, I found myself at a loss for words. Before I could react, Alexander intervened, swiftly escorting my family away. However, their stubborn persistence caused a scene in the lobby, leaving me torn between professional obligations and familial tensions. Feeling stuck in the midst of chaos, I sought assistance from a security guard to quell the escalating tension. Shortly after, a woman named Olivia entered the lobby, recognizing me as a teacher, who relayed the gossip to me. The rumors spread like wildfire throughout the hospital, causing embarrassment for Daddy and Jessica. Meanwhile, I stumbled upon a startling revelation about Mom's purported retirement. It turned out to be a cover-up for her forced resignation due to a scandal, a tidbit of information I accidentally overheard from Olivia. Frustrated by my family's repeated audacity, I took decisive action during their unwelcome visit to my workplace, promptly calling the police for obstruction of business. Their past behavior soon became the talk of the hospital, exacerbating its already dire financial situation. Eventually, the hospital was forced to close its doors, a consequence of the scandal and ensuing rumors. Not long after passing by my family's erstwhile home, I noticed its vacancy, a poignant sign of their financial distress. Rumors circulated about Jessica's failed matchmaking endeavors, perhaps spurred by the local gossip that ultimately drove them away. With a changed phone number and no intention of reconnecting, I severed ties with my family for good. With the successful launch of the new hotel and my upcoming wedding to Alexander, both my professional and personal life are on an upward trajectory, brighter than ever before.